Hi, Rod Kane here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my favorite game, once again, Triumph. It's my favorite Ancients and Medieval game. Um, there's been some questions recently about flank contact and outcome move, so I thought I would get some figures out on the table and do kind of a refresher on what happens with the outcome move of flank contact, because it takes a little bit of getting used to, and you've got to read the rules very carefully, although they're very clear. On page 34, under 6.6.4, it's going to talk about flank contact. So we're going to go over that, and I'm going to walk you through that with some figures on a table, what the results look like from a flank contact, and specifically from an outcome move of flank contact, and in a column, because the column is the thing that's the most interesting, I suspect. So we're going to go over that. I'm going to zoom in on the figures on the table, and we're going to go over flank contact and outcome moves. Okay, first off, let's talk a little bit, or review a little bit what flank contact is. This is covered in one of my earlier videos on the basics of the game, but let's put a refresher in here. If a unit attacks another unit on the flank, in order to be in flank combat contact, it must actually cover the entire side edge of the unit that it attacks. So for example, on a narrow base like this would count as flank contact. This would also count as flank contact. I am covering the entire side of the enemy base. Anything in between will count as flank contact. The only thing that won't count as flank contact is if I don't cover the entire base. So here what we have is a case of very close zone of control, but there is no actual combat in this particular situation. This guy is in the zone of control of the bad horse, and the elite foot will have to react to that. However, in the case of actual combat, let's start with the first simplest case. Flank contact. The elite foot loses combat to the bad horse. It is forced to turn and fall back. Okay, so what does that look like? This front corner must take the place of the other front corner. So in this case, it's a straight alignment of the two units, okay? And then you'll fall back 1 MU per the new rules, which means that the elite foot will end up approximately here. No pursuit for bad horse. Now, that's the most traditional, I'm in front contact with the front corner. What if I was in front contact with a rear corner? So I'm in front contact with the rear corner. Once again, exactly the same. This front corner must replace this front corner. So that means I have to do this. Now, if I had not had the room to do that, or if after doing that I couldn't fall back my 1 MU, then this unit would have been destroyed. So let's look at that with a column. So now this column of Romans is peacefully marching along as Romans were known to do, minding their own business, and they were assaulted by this cataphract. Okay, now the cataphract could come in and hit this column in multiple locations. Any unit where the cataphract covers the front edge, he can conduct combat. So in this case, he's got two targets of opportunity, the second one in line and the third one in line. Now notice, if the cataphract was to win either of those combats, neither one of these units can complete a turn in any way, shape, or form inside the middle of the column, okay? Same thing goes for the head of the column. No matter what I do to the head of the column, if the head of the column was to try and turn to face the fret, it cannot retreat. It cannot turn even, so it can't fall back, so it can't complete its facing maneuver, and therefore it's destroyed. So this is and one of the reasons this is intentional in the game, because if you get hit in column, bad things should happen, okay? Getting hit in column is not a good thing. Columns are very useful for moving troops quickly across the battlefield, moving troops through rough terrain. But if you get hit in column, you have a problem. So in the case of this column, the only unit that has a chance of surviving is the rearmost unit, because the rearmost unit, no matter how I hit him, he'll have room to turn and he'll have room to fall back, okay? So if you think about it from a column standpoint, column marching through the woods, anybody in the front end of the column gets hit, loses combat, they have trouble retreating. They have trouble falling back. They have trouble responding to the response. The only guys that get away are the tail of the column because they can skedaddle, because they are not trapped by the rest of their own troops, okay? Kind of makes sense for columns. And it doesn't matter where you hit that column. It's only the rear unit that's going to have a chance to get away. So in the case of these Roman and Allied cavalry, they're running along, and they get hit. Once again, the cavalry can't turn. The front rank cannot turn. The third rank cannot turn. Only the rear rank is going to have any chance of replacing the front corner and falling back. So columns present a bit of a problem if you get hit in the flank. Now, there are some exceptions, and this gets into the mechanics of the game. And in the mechanics of the game, one exception is going to be the cataphracts, which are on a square base. So if the cataphracts are in column and they get hit, and we'll use some stinky camels for this example. In this situation, if I hit exactly on the side of the cataphract, because I've got to cover their base to be contact, so I can't do this. That doesn't count, right? If I rotate the cataphract, they will have the room to face the enemy, okay? And they will have a chance to fall back. Now, that doesn't destroy the cataphracts, but it certainly doesn't put them in a very good position, okay? Now you have a complete mess with your formation. So the only units that can get away in the middle of a column, the front or middle of a column, if they get hit in the flank, are units that are on square bases. There's very few of those, but there are some. Horde, cataphract, elephants would be able to rotate and get out of that situation. Everything else, if they get hit in the column and they're not the last unit in line and they fall back, are forced to get a fallback outcome, they are going to be killed. And if you read in section 66.4, you're going to see front corner replacing front corner. And when you walk through the evolution of that, you're going to find out that that's exactly the result. So I'm hoping that this clears up a little bit on columns and columns getting hit in the flank so that people will understand that a little bit better. Like I said, it's in there, it's written in there, but the front corner replacing the other front corner does take some time to realize what's really happening there and how devastating that can be if you hit the middle of a column, especially a column of close-packed, close-order infantry. It can be pretty devastating. And once again, here, the camel could choose this unit, or if he hits here, he can choose this unit or this unit. Either way, these units, if they lose the combat, they will be forced to turn. They cannot turn. They are destroyed. So hope that clears things up on columns and columns getting attacked from the flank. If there's any questions, post them on the YouTube site or post them on Facebook or the WGC forum, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. Thanks for watching.